Senator Sanders has come under fire from Democrats and Republicans for these comments he made last night on 60 Minutes about Fidel Castro. I just want to replay them for you, Congressman Khanna. Here he is.
Sure.
We're very opposed to the authoritarian nature of Cuba. But, it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing? Even though Fidel Castro did it?
There's a lot of dissidents imprisoned in Cuba.
That's right. And we condemn that.
Now, some of your Democratic colleagues from Florida, which is obviously a crucial swing state, and these are Democrats, are slamming him. Debbie McCarcel-Powell, I find Senator Sanders' comments on Castro's Cuba absolutely unacceptable. And you just heard Donna Salela. She said that she hopes Sanders will take time to speak to her constituents before he decides to sing the praises of a murderous tyrant like Fidel Castro. Do you think that perhaps he went too far on Castro?
Let me just say this. Senator Sanders clearly believes that Fidel Castro was a dictator, that he had massive human rights abuses, that he engaged in mass shootings, and there is absolutely no apology for what he did. He did things that were heinous and human rights violations that were indefensible. But the point is that what Senator Sanders is saying is let's go back to Obama's policy, where Obama was trying to have some normalization with Cuba and not support Donald Trump's policy, where Donald Trump has reversed everything Obama did. And let me tell you, if you talk to President Obama or anyone close to him, he would have carried Florida in 2020. The young people were for him. All Senator Sanders is saying is let's go back to President Obama's policy.
So a Mike Bloomberg campaign office in Chicago was vandalized over the weekend. As you may have heard, the word oligarch was among the words spray painted. Not the first time that word or similar language was used to vandalize a Bloomberg campaign office. And in a statement, the campaign chairman, Kevin Sheekey, said in part, quote, while we do not know who is directly responsible, we do know Senator Bernie Sanders and his campaign have repeatedly invoked this language. Senator Sanders' refusal to denounce these illegal acts is a sign of his inability to lead, and his willingness to condone and promote Trump-like rhetoric has no place in our politics. Do you think Senator Sanders needs to denounce these acts of vandalism?
Well, let me just say, I'm the co-chair of the Senator Sanders campaign. I unequivocally denounce these acts of vandalism. I don't condone anyone name-calling any of the other opponents. We are not about that. We are about our positive vision, which is a grassroots campaign that is fueled by individual donors, and we are willing and eager to build a broad coalition. So we welcome people who are supporting other candidates to look at our platform, and I believe when they look at our platform, they're going to see that they agree with a lot of it.
Congressman Khanna, of course, some of this, language, though, it does come from the top. I understand you denounce. Here's, though, Bernie Sanders talking about Bloomberg in just the past couple of days.
Today we say to Mayor Bloomberg, we are a democracy, not an oligarchy. You're not going to buy this election.
Anybody here worth $60 billion, you can run for president. And you could buy the airwaves. My friends, that is called oligarchy, not democracy.
Do you think he needs to change his rhetoric or not?
I think he's just pointing out facts that Michael Bloomberg is spending $400 million, an order of magnitude that is at least 10 times more than the entire field. And he believes, as does Senator Warren, as do many of the candidates, that that's not healthy for our democracy. I think that's a fair point to make in a Democratic debate. Here you have Michael Bloomberg calling Bernie Sanders a communist, which is patently false.
All right. I appreciate your time, Congressman Khanna. Good to talk to you again.
So the Sanders-Cuba smear is basically an attempt to get someone, I'll just use another term that someone else uses, guilt by association. All Sanders said was that the education policy in Cuba under Castro, who was in charge for, he stepped down in, 2008, so over 40 years, right? He said this one thing improved, and that was enough for all of these crybaby Florida Democrats to start losing their minds, for CNN to make weird predictions about this will doom him in the state of Florida. Okay, first of all, the majority of people, and this has been proven by polls, do not care about foreign policy. They just don't. So when you start trying to say, oh, this person coddles the dictators, blah, blah, blah. Remember, all of that stuff has been said about Trump, who they're comparing him to in this clip, and we'll get into that later in this. And he has an over 90% approval rating with Republicans. He's smashing up the Republican primary, which is something any incumbent president would do. And he still has a good chance of winning a second term. So all that crying about he's buddies with the leader of North Korea and him and Putin are sharing a bed, it meant nothing. It's useless. It's ineffective. It's a waste of breath and just fresh air to even bother making comments like that and expecting them to hold water. So with Roe, he does something here that, and also let me just continue on this guilt by association thing. There is a thing online and with these reactionary people from the modern era where if you say one good thing about someone that they don't like, it's cancel culture. When I praised former President Johnson, LBJ, not the other Johnson, I was after Lincoln, for a lot of his domestic programs, which include the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Medicare, Medicaid, Higher Education Act, we could go down the list. I was critiqued by I was written a lengthy 17 comment long rant by a anti-war person who basically said that all the stuff that Johnson did domestically was, so horrible as well. Basically, they tried to make me be punished for what a president they didn't like did simply because I expressed some kind of support for that person. And it's the same thing here where you've got, and Sanders actually didn't even do what I do because I said I liked Johnson. Sanders said I don't like Castro, but I liked one of his policies. That was enough for these people to freak out, lose their minds, go crazy. Now, what Roe does here is he basically plays a game that I get why he does it, but it's still kind of annoying. So I've said before, the only two great things that came out of Obama's tenure were the Iran nuclear deal and restoring relations with Cuba, because there was no reason for us to have the embargo that we did. Really past maybe I'm not going to speculate on time, but it was long overdue to get rid of that. So I give him credit for that. I say, hey, this is one of the few great things that came out of that tenure. It's worth mentioning. And he mentions that. Now, I'm sure if you ask Roe about Obama's foreign policy, with respect to Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, these places that we bombed like never before seen, he probably would disagree with it, but he wouldn't say, oh my God, that was terrible, that was awful. And it's just, that's why, I kind of hate even having to associate with the DNC. I know that we have the two-party system, but you're forced to coddle to these people who have these distorted images of a person from a few years ago that they think was, some peace advocate when anything can be further from the truth, where nothing can be further from the truth, excuse me. So it's basically him having to highlight the good things. It's pretty similar to when they asked Sanders what grade would he give Obama, and he said he was an A+ compared to Trump. And I was just sitting there just shaking my head knowing that he's doing that to try and appease these damn voters and their low information having behinds. But getting back to this clip, then I don't know what this lady's name is. It's Erin something, but she proceeds to play a clip of how, Bloomberg's office was attacked and they wrote oligarch and this is similar to language that Sanders uses. And then you have Bloomberg say, this language that Sanders used is very Trump-like. And I was laughing because I was reminded of the South Carolina debate, which I think actually took place. Okay, this was put on Aaron Burnett's channel on the 24th. So this might have actually taken place a day before that debate. But I was thinking of how, just in retrospect, with Warren saying that Bloomberg is basically trying to be the Democrats' version of Trump, a billionaire that says off-color comments with all those, non-disclosure agreements for people to not come out and say what nasty things he said to them. Just the nerve that a campaign backing a person like that would say that Sanders has Trump-like rhetoric. And then Roe was talking about how I, as a campaign co-chair, unequivocally denounce the comments that were made by people. And I'm just sitting there watching this clip, thinking about how insane it is that people like Sanders, right, who get millions of votes during he received 13 million votes this previous in the last presidential election, is now expected to come on here and babysit all of these people who are writing nasty stuff online. He's supposed to take the blame for all of our comments. It's one of the dumbest things in the world. If I say something and it's found out that I'm, let's say, who's a good person to name, a Bloomberg supporter, you won't see the media say, I wonder if Bloomberg is going to come out and disavow Justin's comments, because they're not trying to get him over that. But they know that because Sanders has more supporters than the rest of them, it's a lot easier to start crying. And remember, first they were complaining about how vicious his supporters were online, the Bernie Bros thing. Now they're whining about writing some stuff. It's like when they're not vandalizing, you're complaining. So you kind of, you're literally trying to temper their freedom of speech, because we all know that when you go online, anyone can say anything about anybody, especially public figures. But I've never seen a public figure have reputable journalists come up to them and other politicians and say, "Oh, can you disavow the comments that were made by your supporters?" And I do like when Rose said, "We don't support using any names." Like, he might not support it, but I do. We got Buddha Trash. The media is hiding. My brain is rotten Biden. The fake progressive. Forget the fake Indian. We have the fake progressive referring to Warren. So, he doesn't speak for me in that regard, but I do get where they're trying to be positive. It's just really tiring for a lot of backers of this candidate to see the nonsense the media has been spinning and to be expected to just kind of go along with it and not have an issue. At least not have an issue to where they're being mean online. The only time online comments should ever be focused on is if there's death threats or something else that potentially could harm a person. Other than that, like if I got 10,000, and I've had Trump supporters come on here and say nasty stuff to me. If I had 10,000 Trump supporters come on here and say, you're an idiot, Trump can't be blamed for that unless you have video of him directing them to go and write that on my video. So I said there's a concentrated effort to mess with Sanders over everything. We're going to get you on saying one good thing about the longtime leader of Cuba, meaning that, in a 40-year tenure, it's not hard to find one decent thing that occurred. Hell, in a 4-year tenure, it's not hard to find that, but that's besides the point. We're going to get you over you saying one good thing about him. We're going to get you over your, not even your support, not even a confirmed citing of your supporters, but rather our speculation that it was your supporters who wrote something on a building somewhere. So I said I live in the Twilight Zone. If you're going to blame this man for all these other people, and he's not their dad, he's just a guy they support for an office. Anyways, Roe is decent in this interview. Aaron is an idiot. Thank you for watching.